Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Lost Coast Podcast. Today, we have a very special guest with us, Patrick Sanaghan. And he's with the Sanaghan Group, and they're a coaching consulting group that helps businesses and people kind of help with procrastination. And thanks for coming on the show today, Patrick.
Thanks, Cory. I'm glad I'm here.
Yeah, so Patrick, before we get into your book and that kind of stuff, tell us about yourself and how you got to where you're at today.
I'm an organizational consultant. I run a small firm, about 5 people. We play in the higher ed space mostly, but we've done Apple, Google, GE, Shell Oil, and things like that. Mostly at the senior levels, helping them strategic plan and think, and also leadership transitions. How do you bring a new person on and make sure that there's a cultural fit there and they can start doing some good things? And how I got to write the book, just about 30 years ago, I was writing my dissertation, and I wasn't writing it, I was reading it. I just kept on reading and reading and reading, which is a very sophisticated form of procrastination. And the chair of my committee finally said to me, you've had 7 years, you put a lot of money, time, resources, exams, courses, but you haven't written anything. And if you don't start writing something soon, you're out of this program. And I was paralyzed for about a month. I didn't know what to do. And I was smart enough to ask some colleagues who had finished their dissertation. And that's real advice for procrastinators, is don't try to go everything alone and punch it out, because it won't work probably. Ask for help, ask for advice, ask for perspective, ask for support. And I did. I asked these 3 colleagues who had finished, what'd you do? And they all had these little strategies that enabled them to punch through. The writing a dissertation is 350 pages. It's a slog. It's a real tough journey. And I used 3 strategies throughout that process, and I finished my dissertation in a year, which is very fast. And I've used those 3 kind of strategies throughout my career. And then I've learned a lot of other little strategies to manage my procrastination.
Okay. So now you're in this, the Sanaghan group, and you guys are helping people with procrastination. What are kind of some key components, signs of procrastination?
Yeah, at senior levels, there's usually 2 arenas where senior leaders get caught. We're talking about presidents of universities and CEOs of insurance companies and things like that. One of it is sometimes to make a strategic decision, they get caught into analysis paralysis, where they want more data and more research and more this and more that, and have another group, and let's have a focus group. And then they kind of understand what they should do, but they keep on delaying the tough decision because they want more and more information. So anytime you find yourself digging and digging and digging and digging for a lot of information, you might want to stop and say, do I have enough at hand? To move things forward. So that's we're what we call thought partners. So I might say to you, Cory, this has been 3 months, you've been waiting for this thing, you've done a lot of information gathering. I think this decision, it looks like there's 3 opportunities here. Let's unpack those 3 and see which one you want to move on. So that's kind of what the role that we do. And then the second arena that senior leaders really fall into is personnel decisions on the senior team. There might be a guy named Pat who's a nice guy, but he hasn't done much in the last 7-8 years. And at the senior level, you can't have people who are just kind of hanging in there. But Pat's a nice guy, and he's a sweet person, and he has a family. I mean, all those kind of complications. When the decision really should be made, Pat, it's not working. Let's find an exit strategy for you. Let's treat you honorably and fairly, but you gotta move out of here. And the team members all know that Pat's not very good, and they all wonder why the president or the CEO is not moving on Pat, so that you can really lose a lot of morale and credibility if you don't make that tough decision. So those are 2 arenas that we help a lot of leaders with. Is that helpful?
Yes, absolutely. So you guys are kind of more specialized in the upper echelon of the management systems and making sure that upper management is doing their job to help promote the good community and everything down below them.
Absolutely. And we also, you get to the top because you worked at the bottom and the middle. So we've done all those kind of layers. And in fact, middle managers, I think, have the hardest job in any kind of corporation or any kind of company, because they have not many of them, and they got to respond to the senior leadership, and they got to take care of their people. And oftentimes they really feel kind of caught. And sometimes we can give them some help in coaching, because the middle management, the senior leaders get paid a lot of money and they get a lot of prestige. But if the middle management structure, like in a school district, it's not the superintendent. Now, there used to be a principal. It's the principals that get stuff done, right? So you want to make sure you take care of your principals and support them in any way you can. So we've been on all different levels, and there's procrastination everywhere. In fact, interestingly enough, people who are quote considered blue collar or working class, plumbers, bricklayers, electricians, that do the important smart work that people need to do. It's a great place to have a job, by the way, in the future, because they're not going to go away. They do less procrastination than the professional class, because you show up on the site or in someone's home, you got a hit list, and you got a crew, and you got to move things forward, and you don't say, oh, let's do this tomorrow because the weather's not too good. They don't do that. They go when they do good work, and they punch it out and they get it done on time. So the professional class can say, well, that report, maybe I'll do that next Monday. And the people say, okay, just make sure it's next Monday instead of tomorrow. It should be done, right? So the professional class can kind of get away with procrastination, and it's kind of disguised that way. Blue collar, working class, good people, they just don't do it. Firemen, police officers, they show up at 7, they do their job. I mean, there's no way to hide, as it were.
Yep. No, that's my background. I was a general contractor for a while, and that's exactly it. I mean, when we got off the job, everybody else leaves. I was doing the walk around, making sure what got finished that day, where we need to start again the next day, so it's all laid out, ready to go. I got to get up early to get materials there. It was,
Absolutely.
the whole thing. And then when the crew showed up, they're expected to produce too.
Absolutely. You set the table for them. Everything's cleaned up. They know what the hit list is, know who doing what. That's your job. And they just go. And they don't sit lollygag and say, well, what do you think we should do today? The pathway is clear, and they get stuff done.
Yep. And that, like you say, that goes with any business, because that's kind of the key points. Because I can see what you're saying, though. Like when you have this report's got to be done by, Friday, and today's Monday. Oh, well, I don't need to work on it today because I'll get it done tomorrow.
Yep, absolutely.
Push off.
There's an old proverb that said, tomorrow is the busiest day of the year. And exactly. If it's a Monday, Friday's almost a lifetime away. I could do it tomorrow or Wednesday. And then all of a sudden Thursday shows up and you realize, uh-oh. And that's what happens to students in colleges. They got 15 weeks in a semester. Most of them do. They get their assignments in the first week. And what happens for, 14 weeks, they have a good time. They learn, they grow, all that kind of stuff. And then week 15, they go, uh-oh, the exams are coming. And they start cramming and putting in an essay, all the reports. And what happens is the quality of their work really falls. So there's been some research that you can almost suffer a whole grade. So if you're going to a college and getting a university degree, and you instead of a B you get a C, well, you're going to be in trouble. So it's important to do what we call chewable chunks. That start a little bit on Monday, start a little bit more on Tuesday, do a little bit more on Wednesday, and don't wait till Thursday afternoon to say, "Oh my Lord, I got to do this big report. It's got to be done right."
Yeah. So do you help them set goals?
Yep.
Because I was just on a call today earlier, and the guy was talking about another interview we had with a gentleman, and the guy said, goals are supposed to be hard to reach, very hard to reach. It's your targets you need to hit, because that's what you're aiming at. So he said there's a difference between the target and the goal. And the goal is always a little bit beyond that target and keep moving forward. It was a different way of looking at it that I've ever heard. Most people talk about set your goals, set your goals. He goes, no, set your goals, but have your targets. And that target, I would think, would be your everyday activity.
Yep.
And the goal is that, down the road piece.
It's a step towards the goal. You said might have 7 steps, 7 targets to hit to reach the goal. And I want to talk a little bit about goals, though, because procrastinators, and most of us, by the way, there's a lot of research on this. There's a guy named Daniel Kahneman, and he won the Nobel Prize, which is a big deal in economics about 20 years ago. He just passed. He's a Princeton professor, a brilliant guy. I mean, written about a dozen books. And he found with his lifetime kind of career, he said with goals, there's 2 things you should always remember. One is we have too many of them, right? Because we're doing this and this and this and this and this. We're way too aspirational. He says less is more. And that's real important for pretty high-charging people who want to get stuff done. And so have less goals. And he said also give yourself more time. We're really bad at figuring out dates and timelines. We said, I can do that in a week. I went to paint a house about 20 years ago. I said, how hard can it be to paint a house, right? I thought it would take me a long weekend. It took me 14 days because I'd never painted a house, right? It looks easy. You have to figure out ladders and making sure it's secure and mixing all that stuff I didn't know anything about. It took me vacation, basically 2 weeks of my vacation. I thought I'd knock it off, splash some paint around, and it didn't work. So I think it's really important. Have fewer goals, you'll accomplish more, which sounds kind of counterintuitive, but it works. And the last thing is give yourself more time. So you think it's going to take a week, give yourself 2 extra days. and this way you'll accomplish it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. In my construction company, I always had a saying, there's nothing easier than starting the job and nothing harder than finishing it.
And I see it, the last mile.
Yeah. And
And that's where I have difficulty still. I mean, I'm a pretty good beginner and I'm pretty good in the middle if I'm writing a book or doing a speech or something like that. It's the last mile for me that is the hardest one. And that's when I have to really kind of push myself and use some of these strategies to be able to close the gap, as it were. But some people, it's hard. A lot of procrastinators, in fact, a lot of procrastinators find it hard to start. What happens is they have a task and they say, well, I don't think I know how to do this, or they get, oh, it's too big or it's too overwhelming. I'm getting anxious. I'm getting stressed out. So when they step away from the task, all those emotions, oh God, they feel relief. And that's the habit.
Yeah.
The task, you have strong emotions about, I can't do it. I feel stupid. It's too much for me. You step away from doing it and you feel relief automatically. And that's a very, very strong habit. And starting is the hardest thing for procrastinators. So you have to find some ways to start. Can I give you an example?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I walk 10,000 steps a day. In fact, I did my walk a little while ago because I can't run it anymore. I'm a little older, my hips are bad, but I can walk forever. And I want to keep physically fit. So when the first time I started it, it was winter time, and I got up, had a cup of coffee, getting ready, and I'm saying, okay, now where's my gloves and where's my shoes? And geez, I thought I had that jacket here someplace. And in 5 minutes of fumbling around, I basically said, oh, the heck with it. I went back and had a second cup of coffee. And I'm talking to my buddy, who I was supposed to meet to go walk, and he says, oh, you got to organize all your stuff in one place. I said, what do you mean? He says, when you know you're going to walk the next day, take a look at the weather report. It's going to rain, then you're going to need an umbrella probably, or you're going to need a special hat, or you're going to need a poncho. He says, you put all that stuff in one space in your house, and when you wake up and do whatever you do, you go to that space, everything's organized, you put it on, boom, you're out the door. And it takes me about a minute and a half to get ready to walk every day. It's the easiest, it's mindless. It's just a routine, a routine, a routine. So if you can build a routine around something that you have some difficulty with, it can be very helpful.
Yeah, no, I hear you. You know what I procrastinate the most on, Patrick?
What's that?
Writing checks to pay my bills.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, absolutely. Some people love it. I mean, I have a business partner. When he's doing all his bills, he just loves it because it kind of cleans the table off. I fret and fret, and so a lot of times I'm on the road a lot. I might have 4 different clients in a 2-week trip. So one might be a university, another might be a manufacturing plant, one might be a nonprofit, and they all have different regulations. They have different mileage things. I got, okay, the hotel, was that over here at ABC Company or was that with BDF and flights? And I mean, I just did one yesterday, an invoice. And I just put it in a box. I have a little shoebox. I said, I'll get to it later. And now it's counterintuitive because you get paid if you put your invoice in, but that doesn't matter because all the details are really frustrating for me. So what I've learned to do is I don't have to do all 4. If I do one, that's a victory. It moves the ball forward. Next day, I'll do a second one. Now, if I also, this is what I do with my income taxes, because I hate well, everyone hates their income taxes, but I mean, I used to get penalties because I would delay. I watch sports, because I love sports when I'm doing my income taxes or my invoices. I'm a big Philadelphia Eagles fan. I'm out in the East Coast here. And it takes me a lot longer, but that's not the point. The point is I take a look at the thing, do a little here, look at the game. Oh, look at that. Do a little bit of work. It takes me 2 and 3 times longer, but I get done. So that's what I did yesterday. I watched a little sports while I was doing my invoice for a client in Minnesota because they had all these little details, and I got it done. So that's the key. Now, don't worry about the time box. It's getting done. It's the key. However you do that, like with exercise, you might not want to exercise. You exercise with a friend. That's what I do 4 days a week. I walk with Tom. And, we solve the world's problems, right? We talk around. It's a lot of fun. We talk about sports. Boom, it's mindless. And we have a good time and we keep physically fit.
Yeah, no, that's great. So let's step into your book. This book. You've written this book to help basically end procrastination, correct?
Yes, absolutely. When COVID hit, I was on the road for about 150 or 60 days a year. When COVID hit, that just slowed down tremendously. And for the first time in my adult life, I had a lot of time on my hand. I mean, we do all these Zooms now, and my clients love Zooms because they don't pay me. I get paid when I travel. It's just the way consulting works. Yeah. And hotels and all that. I mean, you can spend a couple $1,000 on a 1-day trip. and so they really like the Zoom, and I do too. But I had all these boxes. I had 3 boxes of stuff on articles and journals and books on procrastination because it's something I've always tried to figure out and manage. And I said to myself, I think I could write a book on procrastination, and that's what I did. And I've written a lot of books, but this one here feels personally very gratifying because procrastinators. I mean, if you're a real procrastinator and you're probably related to one or you work with one, 25% of the population has it as a really strong habit. You can help them with others. So you don't have to buy a book for you. You might not be a procrastinator, but there's probably someone you know and love or care about or work with that is a procrastinator. And I wrote the book for procrastinators because a lot of procrastinators won't sit down in page 1, and then go to page 2. They'll flip and flip and flip. If you flip through this book, every page has got a strategy. So we got them, right? And then about 20% of people start in the back. Well, in the back, I have a summary of all the lessons about procrastination. So it's written for people like me who want to just take 10 minutes to take a look at a book and boom, boom, boom. You got 3 ideas in 10 minutes and you might do one of those.
There you go. There you go. So you just flop the book open and it should be able to maybe lead you in the right direction.
Exactly. Which is good. Well, I mean, sometimes you can spend 2 hours in a book and say, okay, have I learned anything yet? In this book here, page 1, you'll learn something. Page 47, you'll learn something. 150, you'll learn something. And wherever you flip, there'll be a strategy that works. And I have a doctorate. I'm not an academic. I'm not a faculty member, but I do research. And so this is not just flippy tales that I've heard. All these things are scientific backed research in the book. So other people have tried it and tested it and it works. And it's very practical. It's not, my ex-wife used to say, you write like you talk. I said, well, what's wrong with that? Why do I need to have big words to impress people? I want to be understood. And so it's a very, very layperson friendly book that I think can help men and women be more productive and feel less guilty and stress. Because there's not too many happy procrastinators. Because even if you're having a birthday party or you're going to a wedding, what you think in the back of your mind, oh, geez, remember that job I said I was going to do? It haunts you. You got like a shadow over your head all the time. So get rid of those shadows by using a few of these strategies.
So if somebody was interested in this book, how do they find it? Where's the best place to find it?
It's on Amazon.com. I mean, if you look up my name in Amazon, there's about 12 books there. I think it's $11.99 for the paperback, and then the Kindle version I think is $5.99 or something like that. And we've sold a few copies, which is nice. We'd like to sell a few more. But yeah, it's very easy to get and download it or on Kindle, and you can do that in less than a minute. And my procrastinators will procrastinate about getting a book on procrastination. That's the funny thing. So just go ahead and do it, and you'll learn some things about how to manage your procrastination.
Now, in that note, then let's step back to these businesses and clients that you've had back in the past. Give us an example of one that you know where you've actually helped and changed the momentum of either the company or that particular client.
Well, the one around the personnel issues, I've been called into some what we call sticky situations, where there's someone who is a nice person is migrated somehow to the senior level. A lot of times that's through politics, right? Pat knows a few people. Hey, he's a good guy. He's one of us. And all of a sudden he's in a senior level situation and he doesn't belong there. And so you got to have some pretty intense conversations and honest conversations and careful conversations. You're not trying to beat anyone up. They're saying, these are the expectations that the president has, the CEO has. You've been here 3 years, and you're missing your performance targets. And we negotiated these, I think, with everyone on the senior team, and they performed pretty well. There's just something stopping you. I don't know if it's motivation or it's just you don't have the skill set. I mean, these are intimate, confidential conversations. But helping then the president or CEO make the decision, you got to let Pat go. Make sure there's a transition plan for him. Be respectful, but get rid of him because he's hurting the team. Because everyone's sitting there working hard and they're saying, well, Pat ain't doing nothing. So that's in the last 2 years, I've probably had 10 of those conversations. No. And it's not a picnic. I mean, it's a pretty tough situation, but what you have to do is what's best for the company and not around personality. Sometimes leaders say, oh, this guy's a little scratchy. I don't like him too much. I said, well, get somebody else to get rid of him. If it's around performance, either a person has a talent or not, or has the motivation or not. And that's my job is to figure that out. Or they might be procrastinating because they're fear of failure. They don't want to look stupid. They don't want to, and so they won't put themselves out there. They just do incremental kinds of things. So we get them some coaching and some tactics and strategies to manage that. But making those personnel decisions, usually getting rid of somebody is very, very hard on everybody.
When you come in that situation, I mean, I'm sure there's had to be some cases where the actual person's maybe doing a great job. There's just some other maybe people that work underneath them that aren't doing their job, or maybe it could just be the fact that he's not letting the people underneath him do more of the job they need to be doing.
That's a great point, Cory. Once in a while, you'll meet a micromanager at the senior level.
Yeah.
And micromanagers are hell to work with because they hold on to everything. They don't let go. They don't clarify the decision rules because they want everything coming across their desk. If they do delegate, which they find very hard to do, if they do delegate, the minute you kind of make a little bit of a mistake, oh, let me have that assignment back there. So everything has to come through them, and they are bottlenecks. And I've dealt with some of them, and they are tough to deal with because they're usually very, very smart. A lot of times they're very arrogant because they think I'm the smart guy here. I can do all this stuff. And you know that when you're running your crew in a general contractor, if you couldn't trust the people that you were doing, now you have to pay attention to what they're doing, obviously. But if you're up against them and checking every 10 minutes how they're doing, they'll walk off the lot. So you have to give people an opportunity to be successful. And a lot of times micromanagers cannot let go. And it's one of the more difficult people to work with. And that's sometimes we get called in to help with that. That's really around trust. You talk a real micromanager, they don't trust people. Right? And if you don't trust your people, they can't grow under you. And you're right. Sometimes people aren't doing what they're supposed to do. And so you, as a manager, or leader, whatever, a superintendent, you've got to make sure your fingers are in the work, that you know that the people are working, they're showing up in time and doing what goes on. Because you as a general contractor back in the day, if one of those guys didn't do the plumbing stuff good, they don't yell at him, they yell at the general contractor. So you've got to make sure you understand what they're doing, how they're doing it, what the quality of the work is, and paying attention, but not over managing them.
Yep, no, that's exactly what I've done in the financial sector now that I'm in, is
Yep.
that I hire to all my weaknesses. I bring people on who do a better job at that than I do. And then I work with them, I hire them, but I know they're smarter than me at that particular
Yep.
piece of work, right? So I don't have to necessarily watch over them. We work together and I learn too, you know.
That's a smart thing for leaders to say, you can't be perfect at everything. That's impossible. It's like these athletes, the golf game. No one's good, has a complete golf game. Some are great putters, some are great drivers, but there's usually a flaw or weakness. They got to manage that, but really accentuate the strengths. And a lot of them get coaches too. You got the coaches next to you 24 hours a day. But to get people who do things better than you, that's a mature leader. That's someone who says, I don't know, like accounting. If you hired me to do accounting, I would fail. I just don't understand numbers very well. So that's why I have an accountant. Why would I spend days and days and hours trying to learn accounting for my pretty complex business? Let someone else do that and pay them very well. It's just really smart. So you can focus on what you got to do or the most priority objectives and goals. But that's really a smart leader who says, you can't do it all. Let's find good people I can trust who are competent and let them do what they need to do.
Yeah, one of the trainings I went to one time, the guy says, when you go out to eat, you go in the kitchen after you order the food and make it for yourself? No.
Right. Micromanagers want to.
Yeah. So he goes, you order it, somebody goes and cooks it, somebody brings it to you, and they clean up the mess after you. He goes, hire to that. Your job was to eat it.
Yeah, that's a great story. That's exactly right. Your job is to eat it. Enjoy yourself. Exactly.
Yeah. So that's great. Great conversation today, Patrick. So give us some key takeaways that the listeners should take away, so they know.
Let me share the three things I learned from my colleagues who had done their dissertation, and they're three that they're kind of guiding principles for me. So one of the things is to make your progress visible. So if you're doing a task, when you complete the task or a step, like we talked earlier about the target, make sure there's some kind of way that you can visualize progress. I don't know if you can see this very well, but this is my agenda for the day. It's always on a yellow sheet of paper, very bright. I put it across my desk, right? I usually limit it to 6 items. I used to have 10 and never get to 10 and I always feel like a failure. And a buddy of mine said, why do you have 10 things to do? I only do 5. I said, really? And he was a lot more successful than me. So I said, really? He said, yeah. So I do 6 a day. That's my kind of thing. And once again, you can see that if I get it done, I score it out and I love it. But what I have to do is I have to stand up, go around my desk to the yellow sheet that's on the whiteboard and score it out. So that physical movement, it feels like a home run. I got something done. So it sounds silly, but it works. So making your progress visible. we talked about this a little bit earlier. The other one is chewable chunks. I used to think you had to sit down and read for 4 hours and 5 hours at a time. And they said, no, 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 no. Do 30 minutes at a time. Take a break for 10 minutes and then go back. So chewable chunks, anything like cutting the elephant, right? You just piece by piece by piece. So chewable chunks. And the third one was really important for me because I resisted it, but it works. And that is make sure you reward yourself for your successes.
Yeah.
And I said, do I need rewards? Shouldn't I be more mature than that, more disciplined? They said, no. You want to get done, make sure you have some rewards after each milestone, or like we talked earlier, target. So the one buddy of mine who finished, he was a golfer. And after every chapter, most dissertations are 6 or 7 chapters. After every chapter he completed, he would get on a plane and go someplace nice to play golf. I mean, Palm Springs and down in Florida. He said, not the neighborhood, golf place. He looked forward to it. I mean, sometimes the anticipation of the reward is better than the reward itself. He would talk about, oh my God, Palm Springs, I can't wait to get there. He'd finish the chapter, get in a plane, and he knocked off his dissertation in a year because he had these reward maps. For some other people, it might be having a latte. It might be reading a mystery book. It might be taking a walk in the woods or going for a swim or walking with somebody and talking with somebody. So having rewards are really important. And the research is very strong on that. If you have what we call reward maps, you'll get things done. Now, it can't be just, I answered an email with a big reward, right? But I got knocked off 7 or 8 emails, and after that, I'd take a break and do reward. Like I said, it could be a cup of coffee, it could be a walk, it could be stretching, could be reading something or watching sports. That's what I like to do. So those 3: visible, rewards, and chewable chunks. That's really the essence of the book. There's over 101 strategies in the book. You do those 3 things, and you'll be very successful as a procrastinator.
Yeah, take things in stride and do them piece by piece.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, Patrick, I think you gave us a great amount of information today. This was a great conversation.
I enjoyed it.
I know that I got something out of it. I'm sure the listeners did too. We'll have to have you back on the show here in a while, kind of to see where you're at and see how your book's doing. So
I would love that. I would love that. Yeah, absolutely. And you procrastinators, get out there and buy that book, please. It's not expensive and it'll be helpful. Thanks very much for your time.
Don't procrastinate because of the book.
Right. Right. Get the book. Thanks, Cory. I appreciated this. This is nice.
All right. Thanks for being on the show, Patrick. And with that being said, this is the Lost Coast Podcast, and we are signing off, and we will see you guys all next time. Thank you so much. Bye.
Take care.